This collection spotlight video today is focused on the Alco FA. The Alco FA diesels here were introduced by Lionel in the post-war era in 1950 as part of their 50th anniversary set. And these engines had nicely full magnet traction, die-cast frames. In the 1960s, they were cheapened with sheet metal frames, lesser or no magnet traction, but eventually they did herald many of Lionel's O27 sets throughout the period to the end of Lionel. These will be focusing here today, and here are on the modern era, starting with the Lionel MPC era. And the first ones here that were started around 1970 or so were the 8020 Santa Fe Alco diesels. These are originally were offered in an AA set, but then after a couple of years they came out with the B unit. They really generally ran in a B unit for most of the 70s. These here represent a mid 70s set. The second set are also Santa Fe Alcos, originally from the early 1970s. These are the Lionel Santa Fe 8022 Alcos in a modified semi-freight scheme. These engines are relatively special. These are much more uncommon and do represent one of the least uncommon FA sets for almost any locomotive in the MPC era. This particular FA here, generally you'll find it is actually a JCPenney's uncatalogued set, and typically you'll find it in a single A pulling a couple freight cars and a caboose. This is the typical how these sets are found. This particular set is in an AA set, and this was also a JCPenney's limited edition. However, this was commissioned by only one JCPenney store, as a JCPenney's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and only 50 were made in this particular combination. This set was sold in a special separate sale box, and it's stamped Santa Fe twin diesels here, and that's generally this box is a bit yellow, but they were sold in this separate sale box here. One also herald of this early 70s period is the foam inserts of this period. MPC is thinking of play values. So a lot of these have these tops in here represent, like, you could color them up and make them as buildings. This is another indication of those first years of Lionel, with the sets and locomotives having these special kind of corrugated inserts. We're going to hook this thing up to a train of other cars that were commonly part of very early 1970s sets. So even though what we're running here will not be a set, because these engines here were not offered in a set configuration. The third set are the Lionel Alco 8025 Canadian National AA set. These sets are unique. These are not to be confused with this Canadian National set that was produced in the mid-70s. These are Canadian-only production, It was done by MPC, but sold through Parker Brothers. And these all generally come in special boxes. You see the Lionel MPC logo, but you'll see here the Parker Brother logo. You know, this is, I've mentioned, this box was actually stamped in Canada itself. You can see the Parker Brother logo shows up in more than one spot on these boxes here as examples. So generally, this will help show that where these come from. So this is also as a relatively uncommon set of Alcos. As it can be something that is a very, relatively unique for your collection. We're also going to be running a train here of Canadian freight cars. Also here, we'll be running here, the end of here, we'll be running with this 1965 CN caboose. This caboose is also a Canadian-only production here, and this would be part of the number of sets that they did create for the Canadian market. Now we're going to leave the land of Lionel for this fourth set, and this pair of Southern Pacific Black Widow Alcos is produced by K-Line. K-Line, these particular locomotives were originally originated from Kuzan and American Model Toys dies of the 1950s as a competitor to Lionel. These molds were eventually picked up by K-Line, which were generally outfitted with similar amount of details. In fact, in a lot of these Alcos here actually have more detail than the corresponding Lionel engines. So these earlier ones, there's actual numbers in the number boards. Later ones had additional painted details on the handrails, things like that. So generally, they can be a bit more detailed. One advantage of these is that these were sold in sets and roads that were not available in Lionel of the post-war era or even the modern era. These were also advantages of these were K-Line made a good strategic selling point is that they made these locomotives for Lionel O27 passenger sets that were made during the 1990s. With sets that Lionel offered streamlined passenger sets, but only offered steam locomotives to pull them. So you can find these locomotives in Pennsylvania, New York Central, Illinois Central, and even Northern Pacific. In addition to like some Black Widow, there's Southern Pacific Daylight ones of these. You'll find there's Rock Island, Texas Special. I mean, there's many roads available, and we're going to set these up to run around, and here we're going to pull something that represents a real train. It's the Southern Pacific Coast Expediter, which was a first-class freight that ran starting in the 1950s, pulling hot perishables, express, trailer on flat cars, and eventually moved to pretty much all automobile traffic in the 1960s. The last set is the only one, is the Williams Union Pacific Alco FAs. These are the only ones I have that are scale, and they have sounds and things like that in them. So they are a bit different from the others. These originally produced by Williams, and then eventually by Williams by Bachmann, and these are not to be confused with the smaller Alcos. You can see, like here with the smaller one here, you can see the other ones are generally about the same height, are substantially longer, wider, like that, than the O27 counterparts. And these will be more equivalent to your size of your Lionel F3s, and also more appropriate to run with larger passenger cars, even though these were freight engines. A lot of times most people don't necessarily have room for their sister, the PA diesels as well. So here you'll see these runnings here with my Lionel 15-inch passenger cars.